The water in your aquarium looks crystal clear. Your fish are swimming around, seemingly happy. Everything appears perfect. But here's something that might surprise you. Right now, invisible chemical processes are happening in that water that will determine whether your fish live or die. Every second, toxic compounds are being produced, bacteria are working, and chemical reactions are occurring that you cannot see. These invisible processes killed more aquarium fish last year than all diseases combined. What if you could see these invisible dangers before they harm your fish? What if you understood exactly what was happening in your water at the molecular level? Today, we're going to make the invisible visible. We're going to decode the chemistry that keeps aquarium fish alive. And by the end of this documentary, you'll have the knowledge that separates successful aquarists from those who struggle with constant fish deaths. This isn't just about numbers on a test kit. This is about understanding the living, breathing ecosystem in your tank. Whether you're setting up your first aquarium or you've been struggling with fish losses, the next hour will transform how you think about aquarium water. So let's begin this journey into the microscopic world that controls everything in your aquarium. Water is remarkable. It makes up about 70% of a fish's body weight, and unlike us who breathe air, fish literally live inside their atmosphere. They cannot escape bad water conditions. They swim in it, breathe through it, and absorb it through their skin 24 hours a day. This constant exposure means that even small changes in water chemistry can have dramatic effects on their health. Think about this for a moment. When you walk into a room with bad air, you can leave. You can open a window. You can hold your breath. Fish have none of these options. They are completely at the mercy of the water conditions we provide them. This is why understanding water parameters isn't just helpful. It's absolutely essential for keeping fish alive and healthy. But what exactly are water parameters? Simply put, they are measurable characteristics of water that affect the health of aquatic life. These include physical properties like temperature, chemical properties like pH and hardness, and biological factors like the presence of beneficial bacteria. Each parameter influences the others in complex ways, creating a delicate balance that must be maintained. The challenge for aquarium keepers is that most of these parameters are invisible. You cannot see pH, you cannot see ammonia, you cannot see the beneficial bacteria that keep your fish alive. This invisibility leads many beginners to assume everything is fine until their fish start dying. By then, it's often too late. The damage has been done. In nature, water parameters remain relatively stable due to the massive volume of water and natural processes that buffer against changes. A river has millions of gallons constantly flowing, diluting any waste or toxins. A lake has enormous surface area for gas exchange and countless plants and bacteria processing nutrients. But an aquarium is a closed system, a tiny box of water where waste accumulates, oxygen depletes, and chemistry can shift dramatically in just hours. This is where the science becomes critical. In your aquarium, you are recreating nature's complex chemical processes in miniature. You're managing a nitrogen cycle that would normally occur across miles of riverbed. You're maintaining oxygen levels that would naturally be regulated by wind and waves. You're balancing minerals that would normally be replenished by underground springs and rainfall. It's an incredible responsibility, and it all starts with understanding what's actually happening in your water. Let's start with pH, one of the most talked about yet misunderstood parameters in aquarium keeping. pH measures how acidic or alkaline your water is on a scale from 0 to 14. 7 is neutral, below 7 is acidic, and above 7 is alkaline or basic. But here's what many beginners don't realize. pH is a logarithmic scale. This means that water with a pH of 6 is 10 times more acidic than water with a pH of 7. A pH of 5 is 100 times more acidic than neutral. These aren't small differences. They're massive chemical shifts that can shock or kill fish. Most freshwater aquarium fish thrive between pH 6.5 and 7.8. But here's the crucial point that even experienced aquarists sometimes miss. Stability is far more important than hitting a specific number. A stable pH of 7.6 is much better for your fish than a pH that swings between 6.8 and 7.2 every day. Fish can adapt to a wide range of pH values if given time, but they cannot handle rapid changes. Why does pH matter so much? It affects virtually every biological process in your aquarium. It influences how toxic ammonia is to your fish. At higher pH levels, ammonia becomes exponentially more dangerous. It affects how well your fish can regulate minerals in their bodies. It determines whether medications work properly. It even influences how well your beneficial bacteria can process waste. pH isn't just a number, it's a fundamental property that affects everything else in your tank. Temperature is perhaps the most obvious parameter, yet it's often overlooked in its importance. Fish are cold-blooded, meaning their body temperature matches their environment. Every degree matters because it directly controls their metabolism. At 72 degrees Fahrenheit, a fish's metabolism might be perfect. At 78 degrees, that same fish might be burning through energy so fast it needs twice as much food and oxygen. At 82 degrees, it might be suffering from heat stress. But temperature does more than just affect fish directly. It changes how much oxygen water can hold. Warmer water holds less oxygen just when fish need more of it. It affects how fast ammonia becomes toxic. It influences how quickly beneficial bacteria work. It even affects how aggressive or active fish become. Most tropical aquarium fish do best between 75 and 79 degrees Fahrenheit, but consistency is key. A temperature that varies by more than 2 degrees in a day can stress fish and trigger disease outbreaks. Water hardness is actually two separate but related parameters: general hardness, or GH, and carbonate hardness, or KH. General hardness measures dissolved minerals, primarily calcium and magnesium. These minerals are essential for fish bones, scales, and organ function. Carbonate hardness measures carbonates and bicarbonates, which act as a buffer to prevent pH crashes. Think of KH as your aquarium's insurance policy against pH disasters. Water with low KH has almost no buffering capacity. The pH can crash suddenly, killing beneficial bacteria and shocking fish. Water with appropriate KH resists pH changes, maintaining stability even as acids build up from biological processes. Most freshwater aquariums do well with a KH between 4 and 8 degrees, though some specialized setups may require different levels. Now, we come to the heart of aquarium biology, the nitrogen cycle. This is the process that makes it possible to keep fish in a glass box without them dying in their own waste. It's a miraculous system powered by invisible bacteria that work 24/7 to convert deadly toxins into relatively harmless compounds. Understanding this cycle isn't just important, it's absolutely essential for anyone who wants to keep fish successfully. The cycle begins with ammonia, which fish constantly release through their gills and waste. In nature, this ammonia is instantly diluted in vast volumes of water. In your aquarium, it accumulates quickly to deadly levels. Even concentrations as low as 0.05 parts per million can cause gill damage. At 0.25 parts per million, fish begin suffering permanent harm. Above 1 part per million, death often occurs within days. But here's where the magic happens. Beneficial bacteria called Nitrosomonas consume this ammonia as their food source, converting it into nitrite. This process is called nitrification, and it's the first step in nature's waste processing system. These bacteria live on every surface in your aquarium, in the gravel, on decorations, and especially in your filter media. The more surface area you have, the more bacteria can colonize, and the more ammonia they can process. Unfortunately, nitrite is also toxic to fish. It binds to their blood cells, preventing oxygen from being carried through their bodies. Fish suffering from nitrite poisoning literally suffocate, even in well-oxygenated water. Their gills turn brown instead of bright red, and they gasp at the surface, desperately trying to get oxygen that their blood cannot carry. This is where the second group of heroes enters the story: bacteria called Nitrobacter. These bacteria consume nitrite and convert it into nitrate, completing the basic nitrogen cycle. Nitrate is far less toxic than ammonia or nitrite, though it can still cause problems at high concentrations. In nature, plants consume nitrate as fertilizer, completing the cycle. In most aquariums, we remove nitrates through regular water changes. Here's the critical point that kills so many fish. This bacterial colony doesn't exist in new aquariums. It must be grown from scratch, and that takes time. The process of establishing these bacterial colonies is called cycling, and it typically takes 4 to 8 weeks. During this time, ammonia and nitrite levels spike dangerously before the bacteria multiply enough to handle the waste load. This is why so many fish die in new tanks. They're swimming in toxic waste while waiting for bacteria to grow. The speed of cycling depends on several factors. Temperature plays a huge role. Bacteria multiply faster in warmer water. pH matters too. The bacteria work best between pH 7 and 8. Oxygen is essential because nitrifying bacteria need it to function, and you need an ammonia source to feed the bacteria so they can multiply. Without all these elements in place, cycling can take months or may never properly complete. Let's talk in detail about these 3 nitrogen compounds, because understanding them can literally mean the difference between life and death for your fish. Each one affects fish differently, requires different management strategies, and indicates different things about your aquarium's health. Ammonia is the immediate waste product from fish. It exists in 2 forms in water: ionized ammonium, which is relatively harmless, and unionized ammonia, which is extremely toxic. The ratio between these 2 forms depends on pH and temperature. At pH 7, only about 1% exists as toxic ammonia, but at pH 8, that jumps to about 10%. At pH 9, it's nearly 50%. This is why ammonia becomes exponentially more dangerous in alkaline water. The symptoms of ammonia poisoning are distinctive once you know what to look for. Fish gasp at the surface, not because they lack oxygen, but because their gills are being burned by the ammonia. You might see red streaks on their fins or body as blood vessels become damaged. They may lie on the bottom, breathing rapidly. Their appetite disappears. If you see these signs and test your water to find any detectable ammonia, you're in an emergency situation that requires immediate action. Nitrite poisoning presents differently. The most telling sign is brown or chocolate-colored gills instead of the normal bright red. This happens because nitrite binds to hemoglobin in the blood, forming methemoglobin, which cannot carry oxygen. Fish may gasp at the surface even in well-oxygenated water. They become lethargic and may develop secondary infections as their immune system fails from lack of oxygen. There's an interesting emergency treatment for nitrite poisoning that many aquarists do not know about. Aquarium salt. Adding 1 tablespoon of salt per 5 gallons of water helps protect fish from nitrite toxicity. The chloride ions in salt compete with nitrite for uptake in the gills, reducing how much nitrite enters the bloodstream. This isn't a cure, but it can buy you time while you work to reduce nitrite levels through water changes and bacterial growth. Nitrate is the end product of the nitrogen cycle in most aquariums. While far less toxic than ammonia or nitrite, it's not harmless. Levels above 50 parts per million can cause chronic stress, stunted growth, and reduced color in fish. Above 100 parts per million, fish become susceptible to diseases and may have difficulty reproducing. Some sensitive species show problems at even lower levels. But here's something fascinating. In planted aquariums, nitrate isn't waste. It's fertilizer. Aquatic plants consume nitrate eagerly, using it to build proteins and grow new leaves. A heavily planted tank can have near 0 nitrate levels, despite being fully stocked with fish. This is one of the many benefits of live plants. They complete the nitrogen cycle naturally, just as happens in nature. The accumulation rate of nitrate tells you a lot about your aquarium's balance. If nitrates climb rapidly week after week, you're either overfeeding, overstocked, or not doing enough water changes. If nitrates remain stable or even decrease between water changes, you've achieved a balanced ecosystem. This is why testing nitrate weekly gives you valuable insight into your aquarium's overall health. Testing your water parameters isn't just about reacting to problems. It's about preventing them in the first place. Think of testing as your early warning system, alerting you to developing issues before they become emergencies. But testing is only useful if you do it correctly, consistently, and understand what the results mean. Let's start with the tools. Test strips seem convenient. Just dip and read. But they're notoriously inaccurate, especially for critical parameters like ammonia and nitrite. They can be affected by humidity, age, and even how you store them. Liquid test kits, while taking a few minutes longer, provide much more accurate results. When your fish's lives depend on the accuracy of your testing, those extra few minutes are worth it. The gold standard for freshwater aquarium testing is a liquid master test kit that includes pH, ammonia, nitrite, and nitrate tests. These kits use specific chemical reagents that change color based on the concentration of each parameter. You add a precise amount of aquarium water to a test tube, add the reagent drops, and compare the resulting color to a chart. It's simple chemistry that gives you reliable results. But here's where many aquarists make mistakes. They don't follow the instructions precisely. that bottle that says shake for 30 seconds, if you only shake for 10, your results will be wrong. The test that says wait 5 minutes, if you read it after 2 minutes or after 10 minutes, the color won't be accurate. Testing requires patience and attention to detail. The timing of your tests matters too. Testing right after feeding will show artificially high ammonia levels. Testing right after a water change won't give you an accurate picture of your tank's typical conditions. The best time to test is before maintenance, at roughly the same time each week. This consistency helps you identify trends and patterns in your water chemistry. What should your testing schedule look like? For a newly set up aquarium, test ammonia and nitrite daily during the cycling process. This lets you track the progress of bacterial colonization and identify when it's safe to add fish. Once cycled, test all parameters weekly for the first few months. As your tank matures and you gain experience, you might reduce to testing monthly, but never stop entirely. Keep a log of your test results. Whether it's a notebook, spreadsheet, or aquarium app, recording your parameters over time reveals patterns you'd never notice from individual tests. You might discover that your pH slowly drops over several weeks, warning you of depleting buffers. Or you might notice nitrates creeping up, telling you to increase water change frequency. These trends are invaluable for maintaining long-term stability. Water changes are the foundation of aquarium maintenance, yet they're often done incorrectly or inconsistently. A proper water change does more than just remove nitrates. It replenishes minerals, removes dissolved organic compounds, and resets the chemical balance of your aquarium. But done wrong, water changes can shock fish and disrupt the very stability you're trying to maintain. The most common question is how much and how often. For most freshwater aquariums, changing 10 to 15% weekly works well. This gentle approach maintains stability while preventing the buildup of harmful compounds. Some aquarists prefer 25% every 2 weeks, which can work but requires more careful monitoring. The key is consistency. Pick a schedule and stick to it. But here's what many don't realize. The new water you're adding needs to match your tank water in more ways than just temperature. Chlorine and chloramine in tap water will kill beneficial bacteria and burn fish gills. You must use a water conditioner that neutralizes these chemicals. Temperature should match within 2 degrees to avoid thermal shock. And if your tap water parameters are vastly different from your tank, you may need to adjust them before adding. The technique of water change matters as much as the frequency. Never pour water directly onto substrate. This stirs up debris and can create anaerobic pockets. Instead, pour onto a plate or decoration to disperse the flow. Use a gravel vacuum to remove debris from the substrate while removing water. This dual-purpose approach keeps your substrate clean and your water clear. Here's a professional tip that makes a huge difference. Age your water when possible. Fill buckets or containers with tap water 24 hours before your water change. This allows chlorine to evaporate naturally, temperatures to equalize, and dissolved gases to reach equilibrium. Aged water is much less likely to shock fish than water straight from the tap. Filter maintenance is another crucial aspect often done incorrectly. Your filter media houses the beneficial bacteria that run your nitrogen cycle. Cleaning it with tap water kills these bacteria, potentially crashing your cycle. Always rinse filter media in water removed from the aquarium during a water change. This preserves the bacteria while removing debris. How often should you clean your filter? It depends on your bioload and filter type. A general rule is to rinse mechanical media like sponges monthly, but only clean biological media when water flow noticeably decreases. Never replace all filter media at once. Stagger replacements to maintain bacterial colonies. And always monitor ammonia and nitrite levels after filter maintenance in case you've disrupted the cycle. Despite our best efforts, emergencies happen. Equipment fails, diseases strike, or we make mistakes. The difference between disaster and recovery often comes down to how quickly and correctly you respond. Let's go through the most common water parameter emergencies and exactly what to do when they occur. An ammonia spike is the most common crisis, especially in new tanks. You test your water and find ammonia at dangerous levels. Your fish are gasping, lethargic, or showing red streaks. This is a true emergency requiring immediate action. First, do a 50% water change with temperature-matched dechlorinated water. This instantly cuts ammonia levels in half. Add a double dose of a water conditioner that detoxifies ammonia. Products containing sodium thiosulfate can bind ammonia into a less toxic form temporarily. But you're not done. Test again in a few hours. If ammonia is still detectable, do another 25% water change. Continue daily testing and water changes until ammonia reaches zero. Stop feeding entirely during this crisis. Any food adds more ammonia to an already toxic situation. Once ammonia is controlled, feed very sparingly until your biological filter catches up. A pH crash is particularly dangerous because it often goes unnoticed until fish start dying. The pH drops suddenly, beneficial bacteria stop working, and ammonia accumulates rapidly. But here's the trap. If you raise pH quickly in the presence of ammonia, you convert more of it to the toxic form, potentially killing your fish faster. This is called the ammonium trap, and it's deadly. If you detect a pH crash with high ammonia, do not adjust pH immediately. Instead, do large water changes to reduce ammonia first. Only then should you slowly raise pH, no more than 0.1 per day. Add crushed coral or baking soda gradually, testing frequently. This slow approach prevents shocking fish while avoiding the ammonium trap. Temperature emergencies usually result from heater failures. If your heater fails in the on position, your tank can overheat rapidly. Immediately unplug the heater and increase surface agitation with an air stone or by lowering your water level so filter output creates more splash. Float bags of ice water. Never add ice directly as this can shock fish. Cool gradually, no more than 2 degrees per hour. If your heater fails off, especially in winter, you need to warm the tank carefully. Float bottles of warm water in the tank, replacing them as they cool. Cover the tank with blankets to retain heat. If you have another heater, add it set to the current tank temperature, then gradually increase the setting over several hours. Rapid temperature increases are just as dangerous as rapid cooling. New tank syndrome occurs when fish are added to an uncycled aquarium. Ammonia spikes, followed by nitrite, while beneficial bacteria slowly establish. If you're in this situation, you need to do fission cycling carefully. Test daily, do water changes to keep ammonia and nitrite below 0.25 parts per million, and add bacterial supplements to speed colonization. Feed minimally, just enough to keep fish alive. This process is stressful for fish, but can be survived with diligent management. Once you've mastered the basics, understanding advanced parameters opens new possibilities in aquarium keeping. These parameters: general hardness, carbonate hardness, dissolved oxygen, and others. Fine-tune your water chemistry for specific fish species or aquarium types. General hardness or GH measures dissolved minerals, primarily calcium and magnesium. These minerals are essential for biological functions. Fish use calcium for bone development, muscle contractions, and nerve function. Magnesium is crucial for enzyme activation and osmoregulation. Plants need these minerals for cell wall structure and chlorophyll production. Different fish evolved in waters with different mineral contents. Softwater fish like tetras and discus come from mineral-poor waters and can suffer in hard water. Their bodies aren't equipped to process excess minerals, leading to kidney stress and shortened lifespans. Conversely, hard water fish like African cichlids and livebearers struggle in soft water, developing weak bones and reproductive problems without adequate minerals. Measuring GH is straightforward with a test kit, expressed in degrees of hardness or parts per million. Most community fish do well between 4 and 8 degrees GH. But here's what's interesting. You can precisely control GH to match your fish's needs. To increase GH, add calcium and magnesium supplements or use crushed coral substrate. To decrease it, use reverse osmosis water or peat filtration. Carbonate hardness, or KH, is your aquarium's buffering capacity. Think of it as your protection against pH crashes. As organic processes produce acids in your aquarium, KH neutralizes them, maintaining stable pH. Without adequate KH, your pH can crash suddenly, killing beneficial bacteria and shocking fish. The relationship between KH and pH stability is direct. The higher your KH, the more resistant your pH becomes to change. But there's a trade-off. Very high KH locks your pH at alkaline levels, making it nearly impossible to lower if needed. Most aquariums do well with KH between 4 and 8 degrees, providing stability without being inflexible. Dissolved oxygen is a parameter many aquarists ignore, assuming that if fish aren't gasping at the surface, oxygen levels must be fine. But optimal oxygen levels do more than just keep fish alive. They ensure efficient metabolism, support beneficial bacteria, and prevent anaerobic conditions that produce toxic hydrogen sulfide. Oxygen enters your aquarium primarily through surface agitation. The more surface movement, the more oxygen dissolves into the water. But here's the catch: warmer water holds less oxygen just when fish need more due to increased metabolism. An aquarium at 82 degrees might have adequate oxygen during the day, but become dangerously low at night when plants stop producing oxygen and start consuming it. Phosphate is another parameter gaining attention, especially in planted tanks. While often viewed as an algae trigger, phosphate is actually an essential nutrient. Plants need it for energy transfer and growth. The key is balance. Too little and plants suffer, too much and algae thrives. Most planted tanks do well with phosphate between 0.5 and 2 parts per million. Understanding these advanced parameters lets you create specialized environments. Want to breed soft water fish? Lower your GH and KH while maintaining stability with botanicals that release tannins. Setting up an African cichlid tank? Raise GH and KH to match their natural lakes. Running a high-tech planted tank? Balance nitrates and phosphates to promote plant growth while limiting algae. One of the biggest mistakes in aquarium keeping is trying to force fish to live in water they didn't evolve for. Every species has adapted over millions of years to specific water conditions. While many fish can tolerate a range of parameters, they only truly thrive in water that matches their natural habitat. Let's start with the Amazon basin, home to many popular aquarium fish like tetras, corydoras, and angelfish. These waters are typically soft and acidic, with GH below 4 degrees and pH between 5.5 and 7. The water is often stained brown with tannins from decaying leaves, creating what's called blackwater conditions. Fish from these waters have evolved specialized kidneys to retain minerals in mineral-poor water. When you keep Amazon fish in hard, alkaline water, they survive but don't thrive. Their colors remain dull, they're more susceptible to diseases, and breeding becomes nearly impossible. By recreating their natural water, using reverse osmosis, adding Indian almond leaves or driftwood for tannins, and maintaining soft, slightly acidic conditions, these fish transform. Colors intensify, natural behaviors emerge, and breeding often occurs spontaneously. At the opposite extreme are the African rift lakes, Tanganyika, Malawi, and Victoria. These ancient lakes have extremely hard alkaline water with GH above 12 degrees and pH between 7.8 and 9. The fish from these lakes, primarily cichlids, have evolved to process excess minerals and thrive in alkaline conditions. African cichlids kept in soft, acidic water develop a condition called Malawi bloat, where their digestive system fails due to improper water chemistry. They become lethargic, lose color, and eventually die. But in proper hard alkaline water with the right mineral content, these same fish display stunning colors, complex social behaviors, and breed readily. Southeast Asian fish like gouramis and rasboras come from waters that vary seasonally. During monsoons, waters become soft and acidic. During dry seasons, minerals concentrate and pH rises. These fish are often more adaptable to parameter ranges, making them excellent choices for community tanks. However, they still do best in slightly soft to moderately hard water with neutral pH. Live bearers, guppies, mollies, platies, and swordtails are unique in preferring moderately hard to hard water. They've evolved in Central American streams with high mineral content. In soft water, live bearers develop shimming disease, where they rock back and forth, unable to maintain balance. Adding salt and minerals often cures this condition quickly. But here's the key insight. You don't need to perfectly replicate natural conditions. You need to understand what aspects are critical versus flexible. Most fish care more about stability than exact numbers. A stable pH of 7.2 might be better than a pH that fluctuates between 6.5 and 6.8, even if the latter is closer to natural conditions. The concept of parameter windows is crucial. Each species has an ideal range, an acceptable range, and a survival range. Keeping fish in their ideal range promotes optimal health, color, and breeding. The acceptable range allows for good health, but may limit breeding or full coloration. The survival range keeps fish alive but stressed, leading to disease and shortened lifespans. After all this discussion of parameters and chemistry, here's the ultimate truth. The goal isn't to constantly manipulate water conditions, but to create a self-sustaining ecosystem that maintains itself with minimal intervention. This is what separates aquarium keeping from aquarium mastery. A balanced aquarium is one where biological processes maintain stable parameters naturally. Beneficial bacteria process waste efficiently. Plants consume nitrates and produce oxygen. Fish stock is appropriate for tank size and filtration capacity. Regular maintenance prevents accumulation of organics. When these elements work together, the aquarium largely manages itself. The journey to balance begins with patience during cycling. Rushing this process by adding fish too quickly sets you up for constant parameter battles. A properly cycled tank with mature biological filtration handles waste loads that would crash a new setup. Those bacterial colonies you cultivated become your first line of defense against parameter problems. Plant selection plays a huge role in long-term stability. Fast-growing stem plants consume large amounts of nitrates and phosphates, preventing algae while improving water quality. Floating plants provide shade, reduce evaporation, and consume ammonia directly from the water column. Even in non-planted tanks, adding pothos or other houseplants with roots in the water provides natural filtration. Stocking decisions determine whether your tank finds balance or remains in constant crisis. The old inch-per-gallon rule is dangerously oversimplified. A 10-inch Oscar produces vastly more waste than 10 1-inch Tetras. Beyond size, consider activity level, feeding habits, and territorial needs. Overstocking doesn't just mean more waste, it means more competition, more stress, and more disease transmission. Understanding bioload is essential. Every fish, every feeding, every dead plant leaf adds to your bioload. Your biological filtration and water changes must handle this load, or parameters will deteriorate. But here's what many don't realize. Bioload isn't static. As fish grow, as you add new fish, as plants die back in winter, your bioload changes. Successful aquarists anticipate these changes and adjust accordingly. The mature aquarium phenomenon is real and remarkable. After 6 months to a year, something magical happens. Beneficial bacteria populations stabilize and diversify. Microorganisms you never added appear, tiny crustaceans, worms, and protozoans that consume waste and provide food for fish. The substrate develops complex bacterial communities that process nutrients differently than your filter. This biological diversity creates resilience against parameter swings. But maturity requires consistency. Every time you completely clean your tank, replace all filter media, or make dramatic changes, you reset this maturation process. This is why experienced aquarists disturb their systems as little as possible. They understand that the brown algae on the back glass, the mulm in the substrate, and the biofilm on decorations aren't dirt. They're part of a living ecosystem. Water aging is another advanced concept that promotes stability. In nature, water sits in lakes and streams for extended periods, reaching chemical equilibrium. Fresh tap water is chemically unstable. Chlorine evaporates, dissolved gases adjust, pH shifts. By aging water for 24 to 48 hours before use, you add chemically stable water that won't shock your system. The role of dissolved organics is complex and often misunderstood. These compounds, from fish waste, decaying plants, and food, accumulate even in crystal clear water. They bind minerals, affect pH, and can inhibit fish growth through hormone accumulation. While some organics benefit the ecosystem by feeding bacteria and providing trace elements, excessive accumulation leads to old tank syndrome. This is why water changes remain essential even in balanced tanks. Carbon usage is controversial among experienced aquarists. Activated carbon removes organics, medications, and tannins, potentially improving water clarity and reducing odors. But it also removes trace elements plants need and beneficial compounds that fish produce. Many successful aquarists use carbon intermittently, after medication treatments or when water yellows, rather than continuously. Seasonal changes affect even indoor aquariums. Summer heat stresses cooling systems and reduces oxygen levels. Winter heating dries air, increasing evaporation and concentrating minerals. Day length changes affect plant growth and algae patterns. Municipal water treatment often changes seasonally, altering your source water chemistry. Anticipating and adapting to these changes prevents parameter surprises. The concept of parameter drift is subtle but important. Over time, things slowly change. KH depletes as acids consume buffers. GH increases as minerals concentrate from evaporation. Nitrates climb if water changes are insufficient. These changes happen so gradually you don't notice until problems arise. Regular testing catches drift before it becomes dangerous. Prevention versus reaction defines successful aquarium keeping. It's easier to maintain stable parameters than to correct problems. It's easier to prevent algae than to eliminate it. It's easier to keep fish healthy than to cure diseases. This mindset shift from reactive to proactive transforms the hobby from constant crisis management to enjoyable observation of a thriving ecosystem. We've traveled through the invisible world of aquarium water chemistry, from the molecular level of pH to the bacterial communities that keep fish alive. We've explored how parameters interact, why testing matters, and how to respond when things go wrong. But most importantly, we've learned that successful aquarium keeping is not about perfect numbers. It's about understanding and maintaining the delicate balance of a living ecosystem. Remember where we started, that crystal clear water that looked perfect but could be deadly. Now you understand what's really happening in your aquarium water. You know why fish die in new tanks, how the nitrogen cycle works, and what those test kit colors actually mean. You've gained the knowledge that separates successful aquarists from those who struggle. The journey from beginner to competent aquarist isn't measured in years, but in understanding. Some people keep fish for decades without truly understanding water chemistry, lurching from crisis to crisis, never knowing why fish die or thrive. Others grasp these concepts quickly and create stunning, stable aquariums that seem to run themselves. The difference isn't talent or luck. It's knowledge applied consistently. Your fish depend on you entirely. They cannot escape bad water conditions, cannot tell you when parameters are wrong, cannot fix problems themselves. But now you have the tools to be their guardian. You understand how to read the warning signs, how to test properly, and how to maintain the stable environment they need to thrive. This responsibility might seem daunting, but it's also incredibly rewarding. Every aquarium is different. Your water source, your fish selection, your maintenance routine, these create unique conditions that no guide can perfectly address. But with the fundamental understanding you now possess, you can adapt to your specific situation. You know which parameters matter most, how to test them, and how to adjust them safely. You're equipped to solve problems rather than just following recipes. The most successful aquarists never stop learning. They observe their fish daily, test regularly, and constantly refine their approach. They understand that aquarium keeping is both science and art. The science of water chemistry combined with the art of creating a beautiful, functional ecosystem. They find joy not just in the end result, but in the process of understanding and maintaining their aquatic worlds. Take what you've learned today and apply it gradually. Don't try to change everything at once. Stability is more important than perfection. Start with consistent testing and maintenance. Learn your specific water parameters and how they change over time. Observe how your fish behave when parameters are optimal versus stressed. Build your experience through careful observation and consistent care. Share this knowledge with others. The aquarium hobby thrives when information flows freely between aquarists. Help beginners understand why their fish are struggling. Share your successes and failures so others can learn. Remember that everyone started as a beginner, and the guidance of experienced aquarists makes the difference between giving up in frustration and succeeding with confidence. Thank you for joining me on this deep exploration of aquarium water parameters. You now possess knowledge that will serve you throughout your aquarium journey. Your fish will live longer, healthier lives. Your aquariums will be more stable and beautiful. And you will find greater satisfaction in this wonderful hobby, knowing that you understand the invisible forces that control aquatic life. Remember, test regularly, change water consistently, observe constantly, and never stop learning. The invisible world of water chemistry is now visible to you. Use this knowledge wisely and enjoy the incredible aquatic ecosystems you create. If you found value in this documentary, please like and subscribe to support more in-depth aquarium content. Share this video with fellow aquarists who might benefit from understanding water chemistry better. And comment below with your own experiences. What parameter challenges have you faced, and how did you solve them? Your stories help the entire community learn and grow. Until next time, may your parameters stay stable, your fish stay healthy, and your aquariums bring you joy. Thank you for watching, and happy fish keeping!